Hey everybody, welcome to Hand Stamped Hosts. Again, I'm Scott, and we're here to talk about the penultimate episode of Westworld Season 3. That's Season 3, Episode 7, Past Pawn. Guys, that is Sam, that is Ken. Before we get started and talking about this incredible episode, jam-packed with plot, jam-packed with exposition, interesting, crazy stuff for all of us to talk about, Sam, why don't you tell them where they can find us?
Go to nerdcyclopedia.com where you will find all our links to all our different social media outputs at Nerdcyclopedia on Twitter, Twitter, Instagram, and also on Facebook. Make sure that you're subscribing to all our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, Spotify. We are there. Send us feedback at nerds@nerdcyclopedia.com, and of course, make sure that you're subscribing to us on YouTube and sharing, and also hitting that notification button so you can see us live when we do come on.
That's right, because we do sometimes come on when it works. We're hopeful.
When it works. Welcome to the apocalypse.
That's
people.
right, everybody. All right, so plenty to talk about this week. So we probably won't run out of content, which is great. Very much excited about not running out of content. Sounding like an idiot. Ken, we'd like to start with you because you're our energy guy. You're the guy that loves this stuff the most. You're the one that gave Rise of Skywalker a 10 and didn't walk that back later on. Ken, what was your most awesome thing you saw tonight?
Maive Dolores. Samurai sword versus combat dagger.
Oh, yeah.
With aerial drones. Ooh. Come on. All we needed was Mandalorians to come jetpacking out. Faced everything, and our lives would be complete as the world.
All right. Super awesome, super awesome, super awesome. Sam, what was awesome for you? What was your favorite, most awesome thing you saw tonight?
Maive versus Dolores.
It's a 10.
That's a 10 for me. You know, and apparently it's the preview.
I know,
because we're going to get more next.
We're going to get the Rumble in the Jungle soon, right? This is just Maive v. Dolores 1, or maybe 1 billion.
Yeah.
Who knows how many times they've been fighting? I'm in agreement. The most awesome thing tonight was Maive versus Dolores. We've been waiting on this ever since they introduced these guys as the competing emergent artificial intelligences to come from this project. Different sort of touch tones, different sort of progress reports. One developed naturally, one developed with humans, and now here they are fighting about the future of humanity. One using a human agent to do their work, the other doing a human's work as an agent of the humans. A complete dichotomy, an absolute mirror image of each other. Guys, this is what we've been waiting for years, is to see this fight, and quite frankly it delivered. And Ken, I agree, drone fighting on top of everything, brilliant. Because what can make a bunch of robots fighting more cool? The answer to that question is more robots. So the more robots you get involved in a fight, the better off everybody is. This is the success of Voltron, right? That's how Voltron showed up. Some really cool stuff. Man, oh man. So there's some checks being cashed this week on Westworld, and some interesting stuff still to talk about. There is a cold storage for people. There's a cold storage for people.
Yep.
Sam, what did you think about cold storage for people?
This is Matrix, Terminator. I mean, this is, man. I mean, it's so you got all these cold stores for people locked up, and apparently that what I want to say here, they're the Dolores is kind,
right?
You know,
the host.
She the host and everything. So they're apparently, you know, in the thing about saving the world and everything. But then you got these cold storage of people and stuff. So like I said, a lot of it reminded me of Matrix.
The Matrix.
You know, as far as all
the
that
stack of human beings. Ken, what did you think of human being cold storage?
So I was wondering, are those the good ones, or are they duds? Like, are they going to be reanimated and like blown experiments?
Oh, okay.
Okay, they're like they weren't quite right. Their storylines weren't quite right. Too many tangents. Didn't listen to direction. Also, a couple of simple orders, or the perfected new humans that are going to be released and repopulate and restart the whole thing over again.
Humans that are
Right.
unlike stock humanity can
Right.
survive this crisis point that comes from running the system for too long, where people can't, it's like people basically want to make choices, and when you deny them that, even when the outcomes are good, they still feel dissatisfied with the result because they weren't able to choose it. That's an important part in satisfaction. I think that's something I know I rely on that. I know Sam relies on that as part of our income generation, is telling people there's a choice you can make, and that is maybe the number one thing people are looking for in any situation, is their buy-in. But what does the end of season 2 tell us about humanity in this reality? It tells us humanity can't make choices. Humanity doesn't have operational free will, right? So who are these people that Solomon and his son and the Liams have captured over time? Who are these people that SERAC has cordoned off from humanity? If there is no free will, then why won't the projections work? That is the crux of this entire season. And like I demonstrated to you when we talked about the beginning of this season, when we started talking about what the lack of free will and determinism, what those mean, right?
Yeah.
And so we find that while Delos is able to create, right? They're able to duplicate everything a human will do in 10,000 lines. SERAC's solution, right? Solomon's solution is just to remove them from the table. Not try to replicate them, but try to remove the instances that it can't predict, aka shorten choice windows by removing those who are capable of actually actualizing their free will.
Mind blown.
And this is the type of thing when like Elon Musk talks about AI, it's like we worry that they're going to find out that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line and just go you know what I mean, and cut around all
this. Yeah, they said it, and they sort of alluded to that in the episode and everything when they was talking about different facets of what happened in the world and everything, cutting out like hunger, cutting out reducing hunger, reducing emissions or whatever, making sure the world was a better place, but they had to reduce the what I want to say, human population.
Right. Well, you have to, all the things that you just said or that they mentioned, you have to reduce the humans.
Yeah. That was the X factor. That was the in order for the world to live. And where have we heard that in other movies?
Well, we're living it right now.
We are living this movie live.
This is
the apocalypse.
This is your apocalypse spot. We have the one hobby that was not negatively impacted by the apocalypse. We thought ahead. This is something we can do. We can do from home forever. Like our basements are set up. Like we are good to go. We're apocalypse.
Yeah, we're good.
So,
but the Earth is 40% more likely to survive now that we aren't affecting it.
Yeah. So, no cars on the road. No buildings. Buildings.
Smoke.
Yeah, nothing blowing smoke and everything. The world is fine for this period of time until humans have to go back into the world and mess things up all over again.
Because they can choose to. Because they can see. They can see this plan. Right, that's planned and set up for eons, right? To have this river flow where it's flowing, you know what I mean? Like to have the mountains where they are and erosion worked a certain way, and it's right here, and we can look at that and say, nah, I want it over there, and do that. That's what makes humans dangerous to the Earth, is our ability to actualize what we can imagine, and that's something that nature can't do, because nature isn't able to plan.
Great point, Scott. Nature is nature, and it reacts in the moment. And it develops over time. It can't help but do it because that's what it's always done since the beginning of, existence, time here on Earth or whatever. When humans came along, it's amazing how other just talking about other species, how they've lasted a long time versus how long we've been on this Earth,
I know what you mean.
on this short time. But, talking about Westworld and everything, so they alluded to these, tidbits and everything. in this episode, and I love the cold storage, aspect of it.
Super neat. I mean, just like the coolest thing ever is this idea. It's like the Matrix, like you said. It's like Minority Report. It's this idea of, one, taking the elements out of society that will cause problems in the future and intervening before they do, because you can see that they will, right? It's the same sort of logic pretzel that begs the question of are these people that you are cordoning off from their future crimes or future misdeeds that would wreak havoc on humanity? Like, how do you know they're going to do what they do, right? And it's that old roll the ball off the table, grab the ball. Well, you knew it was going to fall anyway.
Right. Oh yeah.
What's interesting about how they're showing what the AI sees at the beginning of the show, where they show the circle, that black area that seems to be uncertainty looks a lot like shadows, which is really interesting. So it's almost like there's these problems that can't see kind of popping out at you from the screen. Super duper nifty. Loved that. I get stuck thinking about these philosophical questions. I lose track of some of the coolest stuff ever, and we alluded to this a little bit when we talked about all the killing technology that's available to these guys in this show, right?
The drone, the gun drone thing, that was if you want to talk about a second thing that was awesome in this episode, that device that Dolores pulled out, that Caleb was looking like, what is this here?
Yeah. And what did he say? He said, "Oh, you're too far out."
Yeah, he said you're too far out.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Let me bring my sweet nano drone in that's going to spot me, and I can shoot these guys from 2 miles away. How about that?
2 miles away. All of them in different spots and positions too. That it wasn't with just one shot in one spot. It was one was inside the building, other one's on top of the tower.
Self-aiming
guns. That was legit.
Crazy. I mean, and you figure it's all point and shoot anyway. I mean, that doesn't get improved on, right? I love that idea that she has this big gun, and then all of a sudden just a little tiny thing goes zzz, and you're like, uh-oh, because that little thing that goes zzz is incredibly dangerous. This is an incredibly dangerous apparatus. It's going to be doing some murder. What do you I will say this, the twist that surprised me the most in this episode is that the Dolores in Dolores is a pawn, right? Is the sacrificable Dolores, not the Dolores that she intends to survive into the future. It is not regular Dolores. It's some flavor of the Delorii that isn't regular Dolores. So now one of the surviving Doloreses is going to be the last host remaining, right? Or Bernard, right, or Stubbs. There's not that many left, and she sacrificed herself to kill the Maive body that was out there. Crazy stuff.
And what about, what's her name at the beginning?
Clementine.
So that was like a drop and then gone. So she's still out there.
Yeah.
And whose side is she going to be on? Because she was a minion of Maive, right? Maybe she's not too happy with Maive after that. Right. Maybe she's going to side with Dolores, but she's pretty badass. So where's she into this whole thing?
Don't forget Samurai Armistice. So you have a team of killer robots owned by an AI who is using his creator as a pawn to do its bidding in its plan to keep humanity alive. Crazy awesome, right? That's super complicated. That's the type of pretzel that Westworld unravels really well. It's the type of twist. It's
a nerd pretzel.
It is. It's like, could Mario build a pipe as a plumber that he couldn't jump over? Right? That's the logic pretzel.
Ow.
Yeah, right. So, man, what about that virus in William's blood? What did you guys make of that? What did you think about the virus in William's blood that allowed him to be tracked?
Okay, so are we supposed to believe that, he's gone, he's deceased and everything, and this is just another I was a little confused on that. This is another manifestation of him?
I think he's real.
Okay.
I don't think he's ever been remodeled or...
So that was a fake death that we seen on a computer screen that Bernard and them seen?
Well,
yeah.
If you think,
I think so.
If you think what what Solomon and Rehoboam are doing is they're taking all the people that could be dangerous to them and cordoning them off and sending them to these prisons. That's where William is. And it's because he's been identified as an insane person that's worth like $7 trillion and owns a company that SERAC needs to buy. So he's being taken off the map by SERAC, not by Dolores, right? That was a plan that existed before the Dolores Hale showed up. So what Hale did by putting that virus in his blood was make it so that she could get to him to free him later. So she could send Stubbs and she could send Bernard to free him from this prison.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But think about this. So the end of season 2, we see that William who wakes up, right? That wake up William, who's being tested the same way that James Delos was being tested. So what would an undead William, like the little Pearl, put in a host body? What would it do? Well, it would go insane. It would lose its mind and it would just act like crazy. So you would want to lock it up. So it would get locked up in one of these facilities, and it would tell you exactly where that facility is and how to get into it. Wild stuff. Wild, wacky stuff. Looks like there's going to be... And you know, the other thing is that there's a chaos that's been created already by Dolores by releasing everybody's information. So the reason they're able to operate is because nobody's at the wheel. I mean, look at what's happening in our reality right now to staffing levels in places like care homes where people are afraid to go to work because of COVID-19 because they don't have the right equipment to protect themselves, so they're not going in. Imagine what would happen in the wake of everybody's secrets being dumped onto the internet all at once. Every single one of everybody's secrets dumped on the internet. We all know there's some messed up stuff out there.
Yeah,
mass
chaos.
Yeah, no one would leave their house.
Yeah.
It would be exactly like this.
Just like how it is now. Stay at home, you know.
The most soft inside apocalypse of all time.
We got some background on Caleb. You know, we got some more background on him and his friend. What is his name? I forget it already.
Isaac.
Francis.
Oh, no,
yeah.
Francis.
Francis.
I'm dumb.
Yeah.
So Francis and so this warfare. You know, I have this dichotomy in my head about whether or not the world has constituted the world where they just set off the EMP to kill Solomon and kill Maive. Is this a real reality, or is this some other sort of level of computer programming? And in favor of that, I have seen, okay, so the virus in the blood sounds like a computer thing. The fact that these guys are all at war, but they're dressed like they just like rolled out of bed. They're dressed kind of like how I dress when I play Call of Duty, right? Where I just like a jacket, hanging out, playing Capture the Flag, real life stuff, right? Dropping a bomb on everybody. I mean, everybody's done that in Call of Duty with a kill streak. That's a level of psychosis. But what would an AI do if it couldn't tell that it was in a simulation and it was in a war game, right? It takes this thing and all of a sudden something else takes control over it. And then it gets healed up and sent back out. Functionally, and I know this is the point, so people are going to be like, of course that's the point, dummy. But they're just like the host. That's exactly the same sort of scenes that we'd see Teddy go through. And this reminded me a lot of the AKICHITA episode, as you watched him in his loop, right? Where was Solomon sending him? The same place Ford was sending AKICHITA out to fight, out to die, out to have a conflict for no reason. So really, really awesome. Really, really awesome stuff. I got hung up on that weird stuff, though, guys. It's part of what makes me have a show.
Oh yeah. It was a lot of Caleb's background. It filled him out. It built out his character a lot more. You know, I was kind of making me seem like, okay, this is, even though we didn't get whole episodes of you know, Caleb, it was more his season than anything, because he's the newest one that we're, you know, more or less getting to know you know, in this particular season here. So to have the penultimate episode be more about him was a real good thing, you know, for this season, because it actually started out with him, you know, and it's right that it's sort of like, you know, rounding itself out with him still in like because he might end up being like the savior, you know.
Ken, to that point, what do you think the odds are that Dolores needed to find Caleb specifically? You know what I mean? What would you say the odds are? Do you think that she needed Caleb personally, or do you think any of these people would work for her? What do you think?
No, she needed him. I think she needed him specifically for his heart, what he had inside. because no matter what influence, what brainwashing, what tech, what sort of takeover, what sort of anything, he's still a strong person, and he's more human than most of the humans. I mean, I think he's able to ground her in some aspects because she's crazy.
Yeah.
Caleb is also crazy, but he also, I think he's very centered and focused and has a very good, I can't think of what the word I'm looking for is, but he's got a good heart. He's got a good center. He's got a good balance.
You think he has a good moral ethos, moral language?
Yes.
Ethics.
He's what all those frozen humans probably are supposed to act like. You know? But he's a little bit better because he has some tech in him. He's got a little bit of modern stuff. He's a little bit of a robot, a little more of a human, and he balances the two. Sam, you might be right. He might end up being the savior, the hero.
Yeah.
We don't know.
We don't know. Dolores sort of alluded to that. Or gave a little tidbit. You know, we need you. You know, you don't walk away. You know, he didn't want to hear anything that the giant AI was saying and everything. So yeah, I mean, he's a very central character. You know, to this plot.
In fact, right now, Pep in our chat. Pep, thanks for joining us. Pep tells us that they think that Caleb is going to be the main character going into season 4, and that what we're seeing here is also sort of a changing of the guard in the cast. The hosts are being destroyed. The bodies of the hosts are being destroyed. The actors who are playing the hosts can be phased out in favor of a new cast to show us the world going forward, centered on Aaron Paul. And we all know that Aaron Paul, he can hold a series together. He is a glue guy. He's a guy that can play the gritty sort of character, do it believably, and make you empathize with someone that maybe doesn't even deserve your empathy.
Yeah. Well, when we're talking about like characters and people having empathy, you know, Charlotte had hers like the last episode and everything, and Caleb throughout this season has had his. Yeah. We have gotten some really great character development out of Caleb, and like I said, especially this episode, filling out his background and everything, and seeing his relationship with Francis. Yes, I do agree that he is going to be of course, a major player for next season.
So what's his role? So if he is going to be the man delivering the plan, like that, we know that much. He has the strategy, the final strategy in his possession. The final strategy that will undo the system created by SERAC and his brother Jean-Pierre, or whatever his name is. I can't remember his name. Let me ask you a question. If it were Beast Mode or Lena who went with Dolores, would this story have been any different? Would they have a similar sort of story about how they were manipulated and the only difference is in the details? Or did Dolores need to find Caleb himself, is what I'm asking. Could any who's one of these unpredictable people be a stand-in? Or was the whole purpose of setting up all those interactions at the beginning of the season just to find Caleb himself? That's my question. So how central is his personage to the story? Or is it just that they need a human who has been wronged, and she's seen enough of us to know that any human that's wronged will want revenge, and that revenge is going to allow him to have the will to undo the system?
Well, he's had an intense wrong done to him. Mm-hmm. He was manipulated and forced to kill his best friend. That's the ultimate. So he didn't murder him. He was more like self-defense, because it was like, if I don't take him out, he's taking me out.
He was like, Francis, you're getting a little too old for this shit.
Yeah.
And Francis is like, I was thinking the same thing about you. And then they wrote, and then they 86 that.
Tried and true trope.
They 86 that and went with something better. It's okay. That happens sometimes. Professional writers, they do a good job. Not talking any smack on writers. So that's my questions are so myriad going into the finale here. I don't know if even the baseline reality is reality, or if, it's almost as if there was a simulation like a Grand Theft Auto game where they just let it go for 40 years. And the simulators decided to create a game they could play inside the game and call it Westworld. And then we're still dealing with a computer simulation. It's all just like this. Like Caleb is suffering from some sort of video game psychosis, where he played so much Call of Duty and he used that limbic system so much that he can't turn it off because it like took over parts of his like long-term memory, you know? Almost like an addict who's taking too much like heroin or smoked too much meth or something like that. It's just eating away at their insides. So that's some cool stuff. I mean, not cool stuff, but it's stuff to talk about, I guess.
It's cool.
I think it's cool. And nobody else thinks I'm cool. That's how it works. That's why I have a podcast with 2 dudes and no friends outside of the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Westworld Season 3 has so far been much more coherent, direct, and kinetic than Season 2.
That it has. I can agree.
I would say this because it has been so straightforward and has been the most enjoyable season of this show for me to watch. I really like Season 3 a lot so far. Mm-hmm.
Over Season 1.
Season 1 was good, but like Season 1 had questions in it like, is, you know, can you be artificial and have free will, right? There are all these other sort of like one-off questions that were answered. And I think that the way people act when they know they're in a simulation, which is what Westworld is not as interesting as the way people act when they do not know they're in a simulation. And one of the big like zoom outs, one of the big complexity upgrades between Season 1, Season 2, and Season 3 is that now the people that are being run through their loops, right? They don't know they're being simulated, and there's nobody in the system that is aware that it's a simulation. So everybody's acting the way they would normally. It's this weird logical trick. I'm really enjoying it a lot because it gives you, it just sort of like gives birth to a lot of speculation, which is really neat. And I'm a speculation guy. It's one of the reasons I like doing shows like this.
Yeah. So, I think they sort of lost track with Bernard. You know, I'm beginning to now. I mean, now that you're talking about that, thinking that there's a lot of characters in this show that are being a few characters are being underserved. We got Bernard earlier in the season, but we sort of lost track, you know, of him in favor of focusing more on, you know, Caleb and everything, you know. I agree with you. This season has been a lot more direct and focused and everything. But I do like Season 1 because of my connection with characters like Dolores and especially Maive, you know, that season. She was just, you know, the heart of that season, you know, with her looking for her daughter. And that's what drove her, you know, to do a lot of things that she had. And of course, Bernard trying to figure out, you know, Bernard and the twist that we got with him actually being like a host and everything. You know, this season been a lot more focused and direct and everything, and it's been a lot more expository, plot driven. I'm curious to see how next week's season finale is going to be, because we're going to get the rooftop scene, the requisite rooftop scene with Maive versus Dolores.
We're not that different, you and I.
You know, we got to preview this episode, so it seems like next week's is going to be a lot more action-packed. I would definitely say this season has been action-packed. You know, a great thing to see for, you know, HBO's Westworld.
You gotta love seeing them expand the budget, really go for broke on something like this, take over the Game of Thrones mantle, and they've made it an epic story. You know, Westworld, the first season had, you know, it was just a Western for the most part. I mean, there weren't a lot of these like high-tech vehicles, weapons, technologies that could show you were in the future. You sort of heard you were in the future, and everybody acted like they were in a theme park filled with robots, and that was the magic, right? It was all in the performances. But now we've got gadgets and robots and construction crushers and Call of Duty drugs that make you see movies in your head that are perfect 10s every time, Ken, just like Skywalker. So we're seeing this weird tech stuff, and that's another. You know, I like this future speculation is neat in my opinion, so I like that stuff too. Wild stuff. I am very, very excited to see where they're gonna finalize this. You know, if we got a couple more seasons left, this idea that humanity is being undone, and it actually is the thing that Solomon foresaw, that is undoing it. It actually will be one of these unaccountables, these U people, these unplanables, these uncalculatables, these null sets where you can't divide by 0. It's one of them that's coming for it. So it is a self-fulfilling prophecy because, as he put it, the previous plan to destroy the system can't work anymore because it's not efficacious. The people are all dead. Everything's changed a little bit, so the plan has to be different. We'll see what it is. We already know that humans have perfect knowledge of what's been perpetrated against them because they've had their information released to them.
Yeah.
One wonders what could be the tipping point on this.
So that's interesting. So all this is going on, and we have these. Let's say we have 4 separate little stories going on. Mm-hmm. You know, we got Dolores and Caleb. We got Bernard and William. We got this new one. Whatever's going on with Clementine.
Yeah.
Musashi and yeah,
right. So what is actually going on? What are the humans thinking about all this? Because they've got to be.
That has been my point of, I guess, contention for maybe throughout the season. We're seeing like one side of an effect on like the whole entire world and everything. What's happening really on a human side besides Caleb? What is actually happening? And how are humans actually reacting to everything that's going on? Because there's a lot of major stuff going on.
Big stuff. And what are they doing? Are they protesting? Are they for it? Are there like groups of humans that are like, like Team Dolores?
Yeah. Do they want to work? Do they want to, not stay home?
They want to go out. They want to shop. They want to get within a foot of other humans.
They don't care. They don't care that the plan for them to survive and be safe is to stay home. They don't care. They want to choose to harm themselves. They want the ability to choose to harm themselves. They want to exercise their free will. But Ken, if you're looking at time as a system, let me ask you: can I yesterday exercise free will yesterday? The choices I've made, can I exercise free will in the past? No.
Tomorrow.
No, I can't. And I can't exercise it in the future yet because I don't know what the circumstances will be. I can only exercise free will from now, which is why it seems like it doesn't exist, because it can only be executed in the present. And as soon as you look at something, your choices are crystallized. You can't change
gone.
It. Exactly.
Yeah.
So really, our perspective at time is what creates causality, which is which is probably a podcast of a different color. We're not going to do that to you guys. I'm not going to do that. Not on this show. But this is probably the most appropriate show that we've done so far to talk about it in. I was thinking a little bit today about how, the other show that we've done recently, Sam, Watchmen, and Ken, you were on that show too. I think you guessed it on that show too. Was all about the same sort of question, which is, can you plan for the unplannable? Can you plan for free will? This is the whole question of Dr. Manhattan and the question of Adrian Veidt and his captivity, right?
Essentially, that's what determinism. You can't plan for something that hasn't happened. Well,
unless it has, really.
Unless it already has.
And time is this flat circle. We don't want to get that dark, although this is a dark show. We don't want to get as dark as True Detective season 1. Not going there.
Not there.
Man, there's a lot of possibilities. You have, so you have, in my opinion, 3 factions fighting for the future of this world, and those factions are humanity, led by nobody, because that's nature. Because humans have naturally assumed the mantle of leadership of the world, right? We are nature. We are the exposition and expression of evolution on this planet at its apex as of now, with no intervention or planning.
And essentially, the writers are not showing us that side of humanity. So,
because they don't need to. They don't need to, Sam. They're already showing us the vistas and the landscapes and the plants. And we are just to these actors those things. We are plants to them.
They still need to entertain.
Because the other factions are Rohiboam, the artificial intelligence that is very unhuman, as we have seen, right? Very unhuman, very different from Dolores and the hosts. And they are being represented by, in sort of like almost like a Russian nesting doll situation. So you have the godlike artificial AI being represented by Maive, and you have the hosts, of which Maive is one, being represented by a human, Caleb.
Mm-hmm.
So Russian nesting dolls of causality, as well as relationship to nature, or relationship to biologicals. Neat.
I like that when we finally got some vision or saw some insight into Rehoboam's personality, it was the HAL 9000.
Yes! Oh! Yes!
I mean, really?
Absolutely.
Flat, monotone, just very matter of fact.
Humanity will expire if you take this disk drive. It's like he's talking about all the different like possible realities. It's interesting that he was essentially schizophrenic, which means that he can see more than one possible reality, right? That's kind of, real reality, fake reality, delusions, sort of bending the lines between what's real and not real is schizophrenia. And what Solomon says, if we are in fact here, and it is in fact now, this is, and he says the name of the, the classification and talks about him. What is that? It's just like an Endgame where he says, you're doing this because he knows your dad's name? I don't know my dad's name. He knows my dad's name. I think, I have a correct prediction, and that is that Rehoboam was running the Criminality app.
Criminality app. That is funny. I laughed at that. Criminality app. Wow, that's definitely a way to manipulate and control.
I wonder what this season would be like if Dolores had gone off with beast mode. I wonder with Marshawn Lynch. It would have been awesome. You need to give a speech to society. No. I'm not giving any speeches. Just driving one of those injury carts around everywhere. Like, this is it. This is the plan. So Caleb is Dolores' plan. We're gonna see some cool stuff next week, guys. Before we go, since I forgot to do this, since we had a double clutch at the beginning of this because Skype crashed on us, which thanks Skype for facilitating our entire podcast business. I was thinking to myself, guys, we should really tell people where to find us. And then when we started the show up again, I didn't say anything. So Sam, why don't you tell the people watching right now, all four of them, where they can find us, what they should do to find more content for us, if they're interested.
Nerds at nerdcyclopedia.com. That's where you can email us. Nerdcyclopedia.com, of course. That's where you can find all our social media links and every link to our podcast.
What's some articles they might find on there, Sam? What's some stuff we've written about?
We written about Watchmen. We written about Ghosts. Game of Thrones.
We're gonna write it. We're gonna do some ghost writing.
We write all about like nerds, nerd culture and everything. So definitely check us out there.
Check us out. Ken, any final thoughts before we sign off? Any final thoughts for the people before we get into the finale? So before we come back next Sunday for what I'm assuming will be an awesome episode of TV and an awesome podcast episode. Any last thoughts?
I wish these episodes were longer. I mean, honestly, I'm thinking like, they deserve to be at least an hour and a half.
It's weird.
So, maybe they could do something about that. Like maybe make them like an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe next season. That'd be great.
Westworld.
Have that wish next week.
Westworld's weird. It's, there's some shows that are in the right spots because like they're good to talk about episodically, but like Westworld, I think Westworld might be a better binge watch just because you don't have to wait for the shoe to drop, So I think like season 1 and season 2 were really a lot more coherent as one unit when I watched them back. Season 3 seems to be a little bit easier to decipher. I'm winning a lot of points out here, guys. Feeling good about it. My final thought is this. The final confrontation between artificial intelligence and humanity is something that we should put off as long as possible. In this, if I were handicapping this, I would honestly bet on the humans. And the reason I would bet on the humans is because I think free will is real. And I think that the time as we experience it is real. And I just don't think that there's another layer of time that artificial intelligence is going to be able to access to kill us. So there you go. We can unplug them as you saw with the EMP. You can't unplug people.
Hey,
and that is my.
What if you do? What if you divide and conquer? There's that element there.
And you can freeze and stack them too.
Yeah, well, freeze and stack.
Well, remember what Dolores is fighting. We think that we talk about this world, your world, our world, the world. Is humanity in control of this world that Dolores is in? The answer is solidly no. So who is Dolores fighting? Is Dolores actually fighting humanity? Or is Dolores actually fighting the godlike AI that enslaved humanity before humanity could enslave her? So which is more evil? Which is more evil? The grass, the thing that cropped up naturally and from which you've grown? Or the overarching mechanism of total absolute control that is subverting free will and causing this, and basically creating the society that birthed you in the most immoral possible way? Cool stuff. Anyway, that's the type of content you'll get on nerdcyclopedia.com if you check that out. Check our podcast out. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the penultimate episode of Hand Step hosts for Season 3, Episode 7 of Westworld. We are your Westworld podcast, and everybody will see you next week for the finale of Westworld Season 3. I'm super excited. Ladies and gentlemen, have a nice one.